my humble opinion, there are a few things as rewarding as lighting a candle that you have made yourself in your very own home, gearing up for a quiet day or evening in. And in today's video, I'm going to be making non-toxic candles out of beeswax. And this is something that I have made mistakes over the years. It used to intimidate me, the whole process. I was like, I can never do that. But then once I learned how to do it, none of the steps are difficult. It just requires an investment of a couple hours of your time, but then you're rewarded with these amazing candles that will last you quite a bit. Beeswax candles take longer to burn, I find, than normal like soy candles, for example. So they do last a long time. They make wonderful gifts. So this is really something nice to do during the holidays. And you can add your own scent or not, because the scent of beeswax is very pleasant and mild. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll show you how to do this. Welcome to True Freedom Permaculture, where I show you all the tips and tricks you need to have a green thumb, even if you weren't born with one. As you know, if you've seen some of my other videos, I try not to buy things unless I absolutely have to. The first thing when making candles is, you can tell this is my well-loved glass jar that I used in a double boiler for melting the wax. And I mean, it works. It's just like when I filled up the water and I put this in, sometimes it would have a tendency to like bobble up and down, and I kind of had to watch it to make sure that no water got in and my wax didn't fall out. And also you'll notice there's no spout. So the first thing where I think it's worth it to buy something is this metal pitcher. You can see it's got a pour spout and it's just heavier. It's going to stay in the water better. So I would recommend getting this, and it's not that expensive. I can link it for you below if you're interested in buying it, or you could find one on your own. And it's nice and tall too. So that makes sure that there's less likelihood of the water coming out and getting into your beeswax, which you definitely don't want. The second thing I think is really worth purchasing is for when you're placing the wicks and making the candles, these sticks. And you can see, let me get one out for you, and I'll link these below too. So if you're interested, you can buy them. But come on, there we go. So they have holes pre-drilled in them, and you can reuse these. And what's nice about them is that they will keep the wicks centered on the candle. And I've done the thing where, you know, I've wrapped the wicks around twigs and I've wrapped them around pencils, and again, it will work, but this will make your life way easier. So for minimal cost, I really do think that you know, it's worth the money if you have it. And you can see you can get like a nice big pack of them, and if you can reuse them, I mean, I can't even imagine the next time I'll need to buy this again. For today's project, you will need a saucepan. You are going to need your metal pitcher or glass jar, whatever you're using to melt the wax and the oil in. You are going to need some beeswax, and I will link this for you if you want to use the kind that I use. I've been happy with it. I actually have a blend of white and yellow. I use the yellow for like cosmetic things. Either the white or the yellow are great for candles. Honestly, I'm probably just going to blend them together. I don't really care what color the candle is, and I just want to use up what I have. I have these little sticks that I've talked about for holding my wicks in place. You need your wicks here. And make sure when you're choosing the size of wick that you take into account the fact that beeswax tends to burn hotter, and it also takes longer to burn. So just keep that in mind when selecting what size wick you are using. You're going to need coconut oil. You're also going to need a bamboo skewer or a long stick, and a good pair of scissors. Now, I like Mountain Rose herbs. I'm not endorsed by them or anything, I just like them, and so that's where I get my essential oils. And today, I'm not going to go into it today, but you might want to learn about like base notes, middle notes, top notes when deciding what kind of blend, if you want to use more than one essential oil for your candles. If you do choose to use essential oils in your candle, you are going to need quite a bit. I have made the mistake in the past of just adding a little bit, and then I don't smell anything, and then it's just a waste of the essential oil. So you really do have to kind of go big or go home when you are adding essential oils, if you choose to do so. They say that for every cup of wax mixture, you're going to need anywhere from ½ ounce to an ounce of essential oils. And if that sounds like a lot, it is. And I have found personally that ½ ounce is good for us. So ½ ounce equals a tablespoon. A tablespoon equals 3 teaspoons. So that should help you out a little bit when you're deciding how much essential oil you need to measure out for your candles. Today I am choosing to scent my candles, and I'm in a holiday spirit. So I'm using some fir needle, and I have some benzoin I don't know how to pronounce this, so please don't come for me if that's the incorrect pronunciation. So please enlighten me if someone knows how to pronounce that correctly. It's vanilla-y, it's very resinous. And then also I have peppermint, which is a nice top note for the candles and kind of gets you into the holiday spirit. Now, also, finally, I've got those glass jars that I have pretty much cleaned out all the wax and they're ready to reuse. Now here's where the math comes in. I'm looking at these 4 glass jars, and even though there's only 4, these are actually going to last me quite a while because, like I said, beeswax takes a while to burn. And I'm looking here, I'm just going to estimate that I need about, I don't know, I might make it easy, like 6 cups of the combination of coconut oil and the beeswax. So if you're following along with me, you need about a tablespoon of essential oil per cup of beeswax coconut oil mixture for your candles. So I'm going to need, yes, that means I'm going to need 6 tablespoons of essential oil. Now it's really important when you're deciding which glass jars to use that they can sustain heat. Not all of glass jars are created equal and not all of them are made to tolerate high heat. So I have had some glass jars kind of crack or break when they're lit. So that's just something to keep in mind, especially if you have small kids around. Real quickly, I wanted to show you the best way I've found to get old wax out of jars if you're planning on reusing them for new candles. First, I'm going to preheat my oven to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. So here's a tip for getting the old wax out of these jars. If I were doing gifts, I obviously would use nice new containers, but because these are candles that I'm just using around the house, then I like to reuse them. And here you can see, like, it's just got some caked on wax from previous uses. So all you do is you take an old baking tray, and to make cleanup easier, I cover it with some tin foil. And then just place your jars upside down on the tray like this. And while your oven is preheating, just have that ready. And then when your oven's ready, just go ahead and pop them in. And if you set it for about 15 minutes, 15-20 minutes, what'll happen is the wax will slowly melt out of these and onto the tin foil beneath. Okay, it's been about 15 minutes. And I have let the wax melt in the oven. So you can see kind of at the top of this guy here, you can kind of see the wax is pooling and it's liquid enough that it's fallen out. So the trick is that you want to get to these before the wax hardens up again, obviously. And these are looking pretty clean. So again, these are for home use. So I'm not going to be totally meticulous about making sure that every last piece of wax or debris is out. Now, this one here is kind of gunky. So I'm going to take some paper towel. And make sure you don't use like nice washcloths or rags for this because you will not be able to, you will not be able to wash the wax out of whatever you're using. So they're still a little hot to the touch. And I'm just going to take the paper towel and wipe it out. And you can see it comes out really easily now. We'll just give that a wipe. And you'll notice that you have a pretty clean jar afterwards. And that's basically it. So I'll probably just go over this one more time to make sure I've cleaned it out pretty well. But yeah, pretty simple. I have found that it's nearly impossible to exactly get right the amount of wax and coconut oil that you need for all of the candles. I try and I come out pretty close, but inevitably there's always a little bit left over. And so that's why these baby food jars, this is what I use, but you can use any small jar, but they are invaluable when it comes to this, to have one handy, because then you just take some of the wax. If it doesn't fill up all the way, that's fine, but if you're going to the trouble of doing this, you don't want to waste anything. So I just pour it off into one of these and it makes a nice little tea light to have, and it really warms up small spaces. So first, in order to get my wax and my coconut oil melting together, I'm going to make a double boiler. So I'm taking my saucepan and I'm filling it with a couple inches of water, and I'm going to get that set at a boil. Water is coming up to a boil. I am going to get my beeswax and my coconut oil ready to go. So I estimate that this holds about 2.5–3 cups, so I'm going to have to use this at least twice, which is fine, to melt enough wax mixture for my candles that I'm using, because remember I need about 6 cups or so is what I estimated. And as far as ratio of beeswax to coconut oil, you can play around. I've heard like 60-40, you know, beeswax to coconut oil is a place to start. I personally I like about 75% beeswax and 25% coconut oil, so that's what I'm going to use. I found that you do need the coconut oil. What's nice about it is that it burns cleanly, and we're adding it. Some of you are probably like, why are you even adding it to the candles instead of just using beeswax? Well, first of all, it creates a smoother, softer texture, so you get that nice silky candle texture. It makes it easier to pour. It also ensures that the candle is going to burn a little bit more evenly, so you do need that combination. It's also good for retaining the essential oils too. So that is why we're using both. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this up. And again, it does not have to be an exact science. So I'm just going to eyeball this. So let's go ahead and fill this up. And you can, so this is all going to melt down. So it's actually, the level's going to be lower than what you see here, because these are still all in like these like wax beads, and they're all going to melt together. But the trick is that you want to get it high enough, but you don't want to fill it like all the way to the brim, or else you risk some of the wax falling out into the water in the pot, and you don't want that to happen if you can avoid it. So let's see here. And now, since I have this about 3/4 of the way full or so with my beeswax, now I'm going to add my coconut oil for the last 25%. And if you did want to be accurate about this, you could use a measuring cup. Okay, so now I have my mixture and my water's boiling, so let's go ahead and place this in the boiling water. I'm also going to turn this down a little bit. It'll depend on your stove. I turn it down to about medium. If I need to tweak it a little bit by turning it up or down, I will. But we'll just leave it in here until all of the wax and the coconut oil is melted. The other thing is it's important to give this a stir as it's melting. So I'll use like a bamboo skewer, or I've even used a stick before. But just, again, something that you're not planning on reusing, because once it's on there, it's going to be pretty difficult, if not impossible, to get off. So just make sure that you give it a stir every now and then to make sure that it all melts evenly. I wanted to show you something here. So I told you this was going to melt down quite a bit, and as you can see, it really has. I mean, it's like maybe half of the way full, whereas, you know, pretty close to the top. You saw it when I filled it originally. So I'd like to do this in the least amount of batches as possible. So I'm actually going to add some more beeswax to this, which is what you can do as it melts down. So I've used all the white kind that I had. This is the yellow kind. Like I said, I don't really care what color it ends up. So I've added my wax, and now let's go ahead and add some coconut oil. I'm estimating that I put in, I probably got, I don't know, another cup or so in there of beeswax. Wax, here's the coconut oil. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let this melt down again. Again, stirring occasionally just to make sure everything melts evenly together. So while my wax mixture is melting, I'm going to prepare my candles so they're ready for us to pour in the wax when it's ready. I'm using an old baking sheet here, and I've just added some tin foil to it. Just something to protect your countertops or whatever surface you're working on when you pour the wax mixture into it, because you don't want wax to get on your surfaces if you can avoid it. So once you have that ready, you can use like several sheets of newspaper if that's what you have to. Okay, so I've got my glass jars that I cleaned out earlier in the oven, and now's the time when I'm going to use those pre-drilled popsicle sticks here. And what I like is that, you know, they're drilled in different sizes, and what you can do is, if you have a larger candle, for example, as long as you make sure that you have like these center holes, I put some of these down so it's easier for you to see. As long as you make sure that you have like these center holes lined up here, then you can put multiple wicks in the candle. So that's something nice to do too. And you will need it. So if you have a larger candle, like for example this size, I don't think one of my wicks is sufficient. I know it's not. And now you could use super glue. I don't know how that burns as far as being clean or not, so I actually prefer just to dip it in a little bit of the melted wax that I have going. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. You just need something to secure it to the bottom of the candle. And honestly, I have done it where I have not done that ahead of time and it's been okay. I just think this will make your life easier. So let me go ahead and dip this. So working pretty quickly here, I've dipped this into my wax mixture and I'm going to put it in the center of my candle. Now this one's nice and short and I can get my fingers in, but if you have like a tall skinny candle like this one, for example, I'm going to need the use of a bamboo skewer in order to press that down. So all I'm going to do is I thread my wick through like that, and that's all you need to do. And I'm telling you, this is so much easier than wrapping it around like the individual sticks or pencils or whatever you're using. So go ahead. You could even make these if you didn't want to buy them. So I do think that they really come in handy. So let me go ahead and do this with the rest of my candles. And if you mess up, don't worry about it. You can always just pull them out and redo it. So they're pretty forgiving. So this is how they look right now. So the bases are secured, but you know, the wicks are coming together and that's obviously not what you want. You want to keep them nice and separate so that you have a even burn. So I'm just going to take the holes and you can use whatever spacing you want. I'm going to slip my wicks through and then you just set them there and they are ready to go. This is my widest candle. So in the past, I just know from years of making these, you definitely need more than 2. I've done 3. I think 4 would actually be really nice. So these are the holes I'm going to use, and I just make sure that I have the center holes lined up on my popsicle sticks. But I'm just going to follow the same process. I'm just going to use more wicks. So again, I'm just kind of pressing down on the base of the wicks that are dipped in that melted wax just to secure them. You only have to hold this here with a bamboo skewer for a few seconds just to make sure they're solid. And don't worry, you're probably like, how do you know where to put the bases of the wicks if you don't have the popsicle sticks? You can just estimate, you know, so as long as you're like in the general vicinity of where the wicks are going to be, it doesn't matter if they're like a slight angle, but you do want to have, you know, approximate spacing of where they're going to go. At this point, you can see that my wax and my coconut oil mixture is pretty much melted, and I'm just giving it a stir with my skewer to make sure it's all evenly melted together. And I still have this over the boiling water because I want to make sure that it stays melted while I add my essential oil. So when everything's melted, this is when you're going to add your essential oils if you choose to use them. If not, beeswax has a really slightly sweet kind of honey smell to me, so they're really great, even unscented too. Definitely want to give this a nice stir. It smells amazing. What's fun about this is you can customize them. You can make them whatever scent that you want. So, you know, if you don't like peppermint, leave it out. And when you're doing gifts like this, it'd be really nice to make a custom scent for someone. Like, hey, you know, I know you like lavender, so I made you some lavender candles. I mean, so thoughtful. And I always just think candles make a really, really great gift. Okay, I'm gonna shut the heat off at this point and we're ready to pour. Beautiful color. Now I like to leave a little bit of space at the top. So about, I don't know, about ½ an inch or so. After you've poured all of your candles, it's time to let them set. And you need to give them at least 30 minutes, probably closer to an hour or so would be better. And the candles are not going to be set fully, but they're going to be set enough to, I'm going to show you here. See how the top of the candles kind of concave? That's going to happen. And sometimes I've had cracks happen in the candles too. And there are ways of preventing it. They say that you can let them set very gradually in a warm environment, or you can pour water around them in a baking pan, kind of creating like a bain-marie basically, all kind of accomplishing the same thing of letting them set gradually. Personally, I think it's easier to let them do whatever they're going to do and then come in, take some more wax and pour it over the top, and it'll create a smooth layer and you don't have to worry about any cracking or any imperfections that may form. Now it's time to let your candles fully set, which will require several hours or overnight. And once they're set, you can go ahead and remove your sticks and give your wicks a trim. I like to trim my wicks back to 1/2 inch. All that's left to do is sit back and enjoy your non-toxic beeswax candles. And don't forget, the first time you light one of your candles, make sure you allow it to burn for as long as it takes to melt the entire surface. That way it will prevent tunneling. I hope this video helped you out. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'm wishing you a very merry and cozy holiday season. I'll see you all again soon.